Hey guys, this is Terry with Futures.io. It is my honor to welcome back Brett Barrett for today's webinar, Tips and Tricks to Getting the Most Out of NinjaTrader 8, Part 2. During the webinar, please feel free to type your questions into the questions box, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the event. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the webinar. And as always, please feel free to share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us a lot. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Futures.io. And without further delay, I'll hand it over to Brett.
All right, thanks, Terry.
All right,
Just waiting to get the screen capture up and going here, so bear with me one moment. All right, there we go, Terry. This is the screen coming across now.
Yep, looks good.
All right, awesome. All right, well, guys, I really appreciate you welcoming back into the webinar room. Terry mentioned this is part 2. We went ahead and did a tips and tricks webinar about beginning of the year, I think, was Terry was the time we did that.
I think it was the end of last year. It's been a little bit.
Yeah. So this is kind of round 2. Really, it's just showing features and functionality of the product that I'd want my trading buddies to know about. It's just going through some of the things that I do personally with the product as product manager on the NinjaTrader product. I've been with the company 7 years now and helped architect the product to the state it is today. NinjaTrader 8 is our next generation trading platform, and I'll get into a little bit about that. And in today's webinar, I've got a few housekeeping things to get out of the way before we get going here. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide here. And I'm going to quickly get these slides out of the way. The risk of loss in trading can be substantial, regardless whether it is in securities, futures, contracts, or foreign exchanges. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances and financial resources. You may sustain a total loss of the funds that you deposit in your broker to establish and maintain a position in the commodity futures or foreign exchange markets, and you may incur losses beyond these amounts. You can learn more about these risks by inquiring with your brokers directly, and this presentation is brought to you by NinjaTrader LLC, a software development company, owns and supports NinjaTrader trading platform. NinjaTrader LLC is an affiliated company to NinjaTrader Brokerage, which is NFA registered. Information presented today is intended for information and educational purposes only. Should not be considered an offer for solicitation to buy or sell securities, foreign currency, or futures products. All right, so with that out of the way, today's webinar, we're going to get into a few things we're going to focus on charts and Superdome today and the various properties, features, functionality therein. This webinar is a tips and tricks webinar, so I'm going to be going quickly through the material. It's kind of geared towards those of you that are intermediate use to NinjaTrader. For those of you that might be complete beginners with NinjaTrader or haven't even downloaded the software yet, I'll try to give you some context so that you aren't completely lost as I'm going through things. Quick update for those of you that are brand new to NinjaTrader, we're going to be working with NinjaTrader 8 today. NinjaTrader 8 is our next generation trading platform. We released that back in November 2016. We've had subsequent releases every month since then. We're working on a release 8.0.5.0 release, so we've had 5 product iterative releases since November. NinjaTrader 8 is built on a modern technology stack and takes a full advantage of modern PC hardware, including multiple CPU cores and video card rendering. And on top of the entirely new technology stack with NinjaTrader 8, we made sure to integrate over 500 user-driven enhancements as we went through the product. And we also made a very concerted effort to expand our NinjaScript support, since when we launched NinjaTrader 7, NinjaTrader 6.5, 6, one of our core driving features is that NinjaTrader is a C# application. We allow our traders and customers to build add-ons, indicators, strategies in C#, and since C# is just a standard language that's used to even develop the product itself, you can actually use it as a development framework to build in your own add-ons, indicators, windows, functionality. Really the scope of what can be done is really limitless since you basically have access to the entire C# library to code what you will. So that's the background of NinjaTrader 8. We're going to be getting into, like I said, charts and the Superdome today. And as I get into the webinar content, we will be doing a Q&A session at the end of this. I usually like to have the webinars go for about an hour in length. We'll cut it off at about an hour and then usually do about a 30-minute Q&A session, just where Terry will go through and pick questions to be answered. And then, so feel free to go ahead and throw questions in the chat room as we go, since Terry will pull out the questions at the end of the webinar. All right, so charting, one of the biggest, most used windows in the product, and it also has the most functionality. And when you're working with charting, there's a lot of settings, presets, templates, little things here and there that can make your life easier. And so what today's webinar is going to be going through, taking you through some of those things. Those of you that may be even using NinjaTrader for some time might get some value out of this webinar as well, since you might be, oh wow, I didn't even know that was there, right? So that's what we're going to be going through in, on our charting section here. I've got a list of things we want to get through, and this is a list of items which I'm just going to start running through in the product. And I've got NinjaTrader running here, and I've started it up. I've got it connected to a NinjaTrader Continuum demo here. And one of the first things I'm going to do is go ahead and open a chart. So Control Center, New Chart. And I'm going to select an instrument here. We'll go with the ES12. Actually, we want the 0317, right? Alrighty, and just go ahead and open that up. So these are a bunch of properties, and I'll be going through some of these in detail here shortly, but just let's go ahead and open that up, get a chart going. So we've got the ES chart going here, and one of the first things that when you start working with the product is once you get kind of past the basics of, you know, new chart, you got a chart, you're going to start configuring that chart. You're going to start having settings and properties which you typically will want to reuse as you build a workspace. And let me go ahead and close this up here. I'm not sure if that gets in the way. There we go. As you build a workspace, I mean, we've got a little picture of an icon of a workspace here on my slide here, where you kind of go through and set up your workspace, multiple charts. We made that a lot easier already in NinjaTrader 8. We covered that in our last video by just allowing you to right-click on the tab, duplicate into new window. You just get a duplicate of that already existing chart. That's fine and dandy. But let's get into some of the more customizable presets that you can set up. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click on the candles here. That's going to select the data series. And this is the window that I saw when I opened it, and this is how we edit the properties of the data series. And there's a few presets you can do here, and I want to run you through both those presets. You're going to see at the bottom right-hand corner, and you're going to see this theme in a lot of our application and any of our property, what we call property grids, is a preset option in the bottom right-hand corner, and this says Preset Day. And you'll notice if I switch from day here from the type to, let's say, a minute chart, you can see we've got multiple chart types here. Let's go to minute, it's going to say preset minute. And so as I select a type here, and let's say I always do a couple of things. 365 days isn't enough for me. I want to go back, 700 days. I like to use a specific trading hours template. I want to have break at end of day. I have different settings like that that I'd like to use on this day chart type. And once I kind of get that set up, how I typically would always bring up a chart, I go preset save. You can see I may have went too fast there. Preset slides out, there's save and restore. Save saves whatever you currently have as the preset. Restore brings you back to kind of factory defaults. And so what I've done is I've clicked save. And now when I click OK here, I've got my 700 days back chart. But now the advantage of that is I go new chart again, select an instrument, and I'm going to have 700 days here. Since I've preset the settings of how I want my date charts to be. And that's going to be the same as whether I come in here this way, I come in here and hit the plus sign, click the ES0317. Now it doesn't have to be ES, that's the beauty. So now if I want to pull up an NQ chart with 700 days back, I just select NQ, click OK. And then I've got my NQ0317 daily chart, and I've got them tabbed. So I can switch between them, and I've just preset how I want my daily charts to be. Now there's another section to the presetting. I'm going to go back in. I did that by double-clicking on the bars. And there's a chart style section. And chart styles, we have various chart styles. We've got the box, candlestick, Kagi, line on close, mountain, open, high, low, close, open, close, and point and figure. And I typically usually work just with candlestick, mountain, line and close, and box. But let's go candlestick here. And let's say I like to have my candles be, I don't know, just pick a different color here. So something like a magenta for a down bar, and for an up bar, we'll go with a blue. Click OK. Now I've made that change, but when I hit plus here, I go ES to open another ES chart. I click OK. You're going to see there's still the defaults, which are green and red. And so what I want to do is I want to say this is how I want my candlestick charts to look, no matter where when I'm opening a new chart. And so I double click on that, and this is a little hidden, so this is why I'm kind of going through it in the webinar, is you can right click on the chart style here, and you can actually set a preset. So you can set those colors as you want, and then right click and do set preset for candlestick chart style. And so when I select that, now when I click OK and I either do a new chart or I do a new tab and I select candlesticks, now I'm going to get that purple and blue. And so I can do that with the wicks, the outlines, etc. So you have a specific look you like to the candlestick bars. You can preset those no matter how you're opening a new chart. You're going to be able to just keep those settings so you're not having to do them over and over again. So those are how you kind of optimize your kind of new chart as you're building a workspace. Adding to an existing workspace is setting up the bar presets and the chart presets. And we have a template mechanic as well for that, and I'll get into that here shortly. But you really have actually 3 levels of defaults you can set up, and that's the bar style presets, the chart style presets, and then the templates. And the templates hold all the settings in a chart. So I've set how I want my candlesticks to look. I've set how many days back I want by default my daily charts to be. Now if I want to go ahead and add a bunch of indicators to this chart, right click indicators, just add a volume indicator, click OK. Now if I want any new chart to look like this and have a volume indicator on it, that's when a template comes into play. And the template also comes into play as I go in and right-click on a chart and go to Properties. And I customize a bunch of properties here that I like. So I either have different margins, I have scroll bars on or off, I have different tab names, different colors. A template will save all that, and so I now right-click on the chart, go down to Templates, and now I can save as default, save as, or load. So you do have the ability to load a template at any time and then save a default. So if I click Save as Default here, now the next time I come into the Control Center, New Chart, ES0317, it's going to load. It says Load Template Default. And I've got a little info selector here telling me kind of what it's going to be. And I see here Panel 2 is going to have a volume indicator there, and I can select other templates here as well. But by default selected, and if I click OK, I've now got a new chart that just automatically comes up with my volume bar. So a time-saving feature here, just to get everything set up the way you want it once. Don't go through setting it up every single time, and use the granularity of these presets to configure your new chart experience as you would like it to be. So that's the first thing I go through and do on a new NinjaTrader install, is get my bar set up how I like it. I've got a specific way I like my bars to look, and I'll just go ahead and preset those. So those are presets. Heading back, next thing I want to get into is draggable chart objects. Again, just running through items which I feel that as an intermediate user has been using NinjaTrader with charts, they've been they know how to get into a new chart, but they haven't really gotten into some of the kind of hidden or interesting functionality. And one of those hidden or interesting functionality items is dragging items around. And so we've got an architecture set up which allows you to drag indicators, data series, and things like that around. And so if I go ahead and right-click on the chart and go to data series, and I'll go ahead and add another data series here. Let's go ahead and add a NQ daily. Click OK. I've got my NQ daily here. And you can see I've got panel 1 up top, panel 2, which is volume on the ES bars, and then I've got panel 3 down below here, which is our NQ daily chart. So what I can do is actually drag these things around. So if I select these bars, so I've got these little dots on it, and I click and drag, and if I drag it up into here, it's going to put the bars on the left scale. So on charts we've got a concept of 3 scale types. You can see those scale types if I double click on this data series here, go down to the visual section here. There's a property here called scale justification, and I've got some options: right, left, or overlay. And in this case, the ES scale is on the right side and the NQ scale is on the left side, and each scale is independent. So if I hold down Control and move up and down with my left mouse here while dragging on this left scale here, I've now moved into fixed scale mode, and I can drag these up or down or compress the scales up or down. And again, I'm doing that just by left clicking and dragging. And I've got an independent scale here that I can mess with. Now, if the two, in this case, we've got 2 instruments. We've got a NQ and an ES, and they're both at really different prices. So this one's in the near 5,000 range, and the ES is in the 2380 range. So if I have both of these on the same scale, the chart's going to be really compressed and not look right. And I can do that the long way, and by just double clicking on the NQ, going down into the properties, scale justification, left, and I can move that to right. And as I do that, click OK, I'm going to get a chart where the ES is just floating down here at the bottom and the NQ is way up here. Not too usable. Might be usable in some scenarios, but again, in this case, not really. Or I do the shortcut way, which I don't even go into the data series properties anymore. I just drag things around. And so what I'll do is I'll click on the NQ here, grab it, left click and drag and hold. I've got the drag icon there on my mouse. Go over to the left side and let go. And when I do that, it's telling NinjaTrader to assign it to the left scale. So you can move scales just by dragging things around to the different scales. And now I drag it back over, reassign it, drag things down. So let's say if I wanted to move the NQ back down, but above the volume indicator, move it here. I've got the highlight to where I drop it. Now as I drop it, I get the NQ dropped between the volume and the ES. And I can do that with indicators as well. So where that really gets nice is when you've got a bunch of indicators. Let's say you want the SMA indicator on the ES here, and you want to add a few. Let's go ahead and add a few. Let's add like the volume SMA. So we've got a volume SMA here. Get down to V's by just pressing the V on my keyboard here. Volume MA, I'm going to go ahead and add that. Click OK. And now The nice thing is that typically I don't want to waste all this real estate for a volume moving average, since it should nicely pair up with the volume of the ES here. So I just click it, drag it up, drop it, and I've easily now combined these two indicators into one panel. So dragging, big time saver. We don't just stop at dragging. We do have draggable chart objects where I do want to talk a little bit about, in my next bullet point here, is working with the drawing objects and copying and pasting them, and also the global drawing objects. So when you're working with multiple charts, multiple tabs, I'm going to go ahead and clear these out here. And so we'll shrink up this chart, and we'll right-click, duplicate the new window, just duplicates it, move it to the side here. So I've got two identical charts. And what I'm going to do now is just make a drawing object. So I'll go ahead and do a ray, for example, just like so. So within NinjaTrader, you can actually select that drawing object, do Control-C or right-click, copy, and then you can paste it over here. So it just gives you a way to easily paste and cut, paste drawing objects from chart to chart. And when I do that, these drawing objects are really copied, so they're independent. So as I drag this scale around here, you'll see that this drawing object over here on this NQ remained. It didn't move. So a feature of NinjaTrader is a global drawing object. So you can copy and paste things. However, if you really are kind of looking to have an object be the same on all your charts, let's say you've got a 5-minute, a 10-minute, a 15-minute, you can double-click on the drawing tool or right-click, Properties. Again, double-click is just a faster way to get to Properties. And there's this Attach To section here where it says NQ0317 Daily. If I open that up, you're going to see I have an option to go to all NQ0317 charts. So I'll go ahead and select that and click OK. And so when I do that, I've now said this is a global drawing object. This will display on all NQ0317 charts. And as I now move and drag this up and down, you'll notice that the drawing object moves. So everything will be in sync. So if you go ahead and move this drawing object over here, this one will adjust. So global drawing objects, just a way to have the same drawing object on multiple charts. Very handy. All right, and then I wanted to get into drawing objects templates as well, since I've seen too many times where you get a drawing object that you've configured, and I've seen where customers will go in and configure that drawing tool each time they draw it. And the big offender is usually like the Fibonacci retracements. Everybody likes to customize those a little bit. So if I open a drawing tool, go down to Fibonacci retracements, go ahead and draw one out here, make it a little bigger. And so I've drawn a Fibonacci retracement drawing tool. And this is just one of many of the drawing tools, and what I'm going to show you applies to any drawing tool. And what I'm going to do is I have some properties and settings that I typically will always use with Fibonacci retracements. For example, I'll double-click on it to get into the properties, and I might want to change some of the levels. I might want to decide that the lines, so if I do extend lines left here and click Apply, you'll see that it kind of extended those lines to the left. I'll do the extend lines to the right. I'll go through and configure this guy how I like it. We can do the extreme left side, text alignment, and get this guy kind of set up how I want it. Change the colors, figure out what levels I want. I can do 7 price levels here, so here's how I edit the price levels. And get it set up how I want it. And then I don't want to have to do that every single time, in which case I'll set up a template. And again, same concept as you saw before in the data series window. There's a template option here, and we use 2 terms here. You're going to see the term preset and you're going to see the term template. Preset means you are just presetting those settings that will always apply all the time. Think of it like a default. Template is when you can actually save as many templates and load either one of those, and one of those can be a default template. So it's just an expanded concept of preset. And so if I click template, I've got save and load, and I go ahead and click save here, and I'm going to get a file dialog here. I've got no template saved, and if I keep it named as default, it's going to save it as the default template and use that in the future by default. So if I click save, click apply, click OK. And so now as I draw another Fibonacci retracement right here, you'll see that I've got an exact duplication of all the settings that I wanted before. And with presets, you're limited to one default, but with templates, you're not. So you can have multiple templates and load them at any time. So I've got a default here, but if I wanted to create another template by turning off the extend lines left for whatever reason, and then I can save that template, test one, click save, and I can come down here, template, load, select test one. Extend line left is off, click OK. And so templates are just a quick way to get some once you've got your drawing tools configured how you like to use them, get those templates saved, save them as defaults. Don't go through the pain of setting those up each time you want to use a drawing tool. Just a quality of life feature there. All right, so that's drawing object templates. Another thing I wanted to get into with charts, it's a known feature. We do market it and talk about it a lot. I don't feel it gets a lot of usage though, and it is a little hidden, and the reason is these are chaining the output of one indicator to the input of another indicator. So what this allows you to do is just get some interesting combinations together. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this chart here and expand this, and we'll get rid of the NQ chart here. And I did that by just selecting and pressing the delete button on my keyboard. Again, I use the keyboard shortcuts almost exclusively now instead of going into the data series and removing them. And so what I'm going to do is go into the indicators, which is Control-I, by the way, if you're a hotkey person. Control-I, and that'll get me into the indicators dialog. And so we already have, I'll show you a simple example and then I'll show you one other example. When you're setting up indicators, before we have an indicator here, this was kind of legacy. We've had this prior, and it just makes it easier. But there's a volume MA, and this is a indicator which just takes the volume and does a moving average on it. And as I click OK, I showed you that prior, and it's just a moving average of volume. And I can do that just if I happen to have an indicator, do that, great. If I didn't happen to have an indicator of that and I wanted to do an SMA of volume, okay, I can do that by taking the output of the volume indicator and making that the input of an SMA indicator. And easier to show you than tell, so I'm going to right-click Indicators. I'm going to go into an SMA indicator, add that to the chart, and I've got my settings that I want for my moving average here. I've got my parameters, 14 periods back, and I've got this input series here, which is set to, by default, ES0317 daily. As I move over it, it says Edit Input. This is a editable input property. And as I click it, I get a dialog here where I can select any applied data series on the chart, or I can select another indicator. So here I now would select the volume indicator, scrolling down to the V's, volume. And the interesting thing here is you can actually chain and chain and chain recursively, but let's keep it simple for now. So just a volume indicator, I'm going to click OK. You're going to see the text changes here to volume, which is running on the ES0317 daily. And then I'm going to click OK. And so what I've got here, and because the SMA indicator traditionally is a draw on price panel indicator, so it's always with the data series, it's popped up here in this panel. And what I can do is drag that down here, like so. And now I've got my SMA here, which is running on volume. So that's just an easy way to chain together some indicators. And I could have set that panel beforehand if I wasn't so fast to get through the OK. There is a panel selection here, which I could have, you have same as input 1, 2, or 3. So you can change panels here or do it the fast way and just drag it around, which is what I tend to do. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with this. I know a lot of people will combine several indicators together. Most commonly used are the kind of SMAs, EMAs on top of existing indicators. Say you wanted to kind of flatten something out, you can do that. There's a lot of interesting little things you can do with that. So definitely an underused feature, but definitely an interesting one. Combinations are kind of endless there on what you can do. So that is chaining indicator values. Next bullet point here is setting up multi-time frame box style daily charts. So what do I mean by that? This is something that I do in my charting. So wanted to share it with you guys. So a lot of times I like to have one monitor with a full screen chart, and I like to see the larger time frame and the smaller time frame together. So what I'll do is I'll right click, go data series here, and I've got the ES chart here, and I'm going to go ahead and add another ES data series, and this is going to be a minute, and I'm going to do this as a let's do a 60-minute chart. And I'm also going to do it 365 days back to match the daily series. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. We'll go ahead and load that up. And so now I've got two charts here. I'm going to drag the 60-minute up above here. I'm going to collapse this up here. And so you can see that I've got a bunch of daily bars here, which is spaced out. We've got a bunch of 60-minute bars in between the daily bars, and we've got a volume running on each daily bar. So I'm going to get rid of the volume on each daily bar for now. So get rid of that. Drag this up here. And so I could use this chart like this, sure. A little bit of waste of real estate to have this daily bar up here, which is just kind of showing me what I've seen down here. So what I tend to do is I'll select the daily bars here, and I'll change the chart style to box. Okay, so a box just draws a box around the open, high, low, close, and I'm going to go ahead and select the box and drag it down into the 60-minute chart, like so. And so as I do that, I now get a chart which has the a box around the daily open, high, low, close in the background, and I see kind of what happened inside of that box as the trading goes on. So I can see the open, highs, lows. I can see how that daily bar was built, and it kind of lets me look into the bar. I tend to do this quite often, not typically with these color schemes, but just gives you a way to set up a complex chart. I'll do this usually with weekly bars and daily bars, and I'll put some different colors on it so I can just get some context of it and use that for my charting. So definitely is interesting. Okay. Next thing is working with multiple chart tabs and utilizing chart templates. So let me pop back over into my chart here. And so by default, when you're have a complex chart set up. So let's say we'll go ahead and get rid of those box bars here. And we've got a 60-minute here. And I'm going to use a trick. I think I showed this in the last video. I have a couple ways to add new tabs. One is just to go the plus icon here and go ES. We'll do the same ES again, but this time we'll do a 5-minute. All right, let's do a 30-minute. And then we'll do a 15-minute. And then I'll do a 5-minute. All right, so I've got a 5, I've got a 15, and I'm looking up here to see that. I've got a 30 and a 60. By default, our tabs just have the name of the instrument on the bottom here. And when you're looking at this chart, you might want to actually know what each one of these tabs are. If you're a trader that's using tabs in the way to where, if you're using tabs to separate between instruments, no problem. Each instrument will be different. You can know what each tab does. If you're using tabs to, let's say, have the same instrument but multiple views on that same instrument, then you probably want to have the tab name tell you what that is. So I'm going to right-click, go to Properties here, and on the chart properties, there's a tab name, and we use these variables here. It's called instrument full here is the default, but if you hit this little triangle here, it gives you the ability to specify a different tab function, and one of those is data series. So if I do data series and then click OK, you'll see now it says ES03 60-minute. So what I'll do is just go through and apply that tab name to each one. And if I find that I'm always doing it that way, so again, now I'm going through each one and setting the name, which is a little painful. Wouldn't want to do this every single time I set up a chart. So I go through, go data series, and on the last one, what I'll do, go into properties, and again, we've got the whole preset concept going. So if this is how you typically want to see your tabs, and you've got a bunch of options, you can chain them together. This is a text box, so you can chain these together how you like. And click preset here on the bottom right and click save. So again, that way, each time you open a new tab or a new chart, it's going to be the way that you prefer. And now I get a descriptive 60-minute, 30-minute, 15-minute, and 5-minute views of the same data. So just another way to customize my charting setup. And then finally, we talked about presets on the chart, but we didn't get into the chart template, which, let's say I've got my chart set up how I like it. I like these bars here. I always want my charts to have a volume on them. This is my template. And so I'll right-click on the chart, go down to Templates, select Save as Default. So this time, as I go plus, select a new instrument. We'll do a 1 minute this time. Click OK. And you'll see that I've got my data series tab name as I expected and set up. And I've got my bars colored as I expected, and I've got my volume indicator applied as expected. So the template's saved everything for me, makes it painless to build up a complex workspace. All right, so that's getting into some of the chart properties, templates, good to know items on charts, and things like that. The next thing is kind of getting into Superdome stuff and moving on to some of the advancements we've made in the Dome. And so I'll go ahead and close out of my chart, go back to my control center here, and I'll go New Superdome. And we'll get out of that. All right. So on the Dome. Dome should look pretty familiar from those of you that have not seen the NT8 Dome. I hope you have seen it since we did release NinjaTrader 8 back in November. But the NinjaTrader 8 Dome is pretty similar to our NinjaTrader 7 Dome in a lot of ways, and we've added a lot of interesting new things which I've never seen done before. And one of those things are the ability to add indicators on the dome and the ability to add columns on the dome. And I wanted to run you guys through that since it's definitely, I usually will always have one dome that's got, let's say, a more complex setup than a simple dome setup. And so what I'll do is right-click on the dome, and I get a bunch of options here, columns and indicators. And let's go ahead and go through the column setup first. So again, columns are new to NinjaTrader 8. We're shipping with 4 columns right now. These are a NinjaScript object, which means that third-party developers or even yourself, if you are inclined to get in and use the NinjaScript editor to create your own Superdome column, can do so. And we've got APQ, which stands for Approximate Position and Q. We've got a Notes column, we've got a P&L column, and we've got a Volume column. I'm going to go ahead and add them all on just by double-clicking them here and clicking OK. So what it's done is it's stuffed a bunch of columns in here, and I need to make my view a little wider. And as I do so, I want to save some screen real estate on the bottom here. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go Trade Control on Left. And then I want to save a bit more real estate. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to turn off the tabs and kind of expand this out to something that looks good here. And we've got a bunch of columns here, and I want to run you through each one. An APQ column is Approximate Place in Q, and as I submit an order, so let's go ahead and do a cell limit here, and Approximate Place in Q is a conservative estimate of where you're located in the queue. So with the exchanges, they actually don't give you the information to tell where you're at in the queue, and so we have to approximate that. And there's a kind of a liberal or conservative way to approximate your queue position. We take the conservative approach, so what we're doing here is monitoring the depth at the price level where I submitted my order, which I'm not getting much going on here right now since the markets are in overnight trading here and slow. But what we do is just track the lowest volume seen at that price level since you've submitted the order. So if this 47 now goes down to 2020 and I've submitted my order when it was at 47, well, I can guarantee you that I'm at least position 20 in the queue to be filled. So we're going to report 20 on my APQ column here. And if the number now goes back up to 47, 20 will remain. So because I know that I'm at least in position 20. And it just gives you an indicator to know and get a feeling. You know, we've all been there where, you know, the market's just kind of touching and playing with a profit target, and you're wondering whether you should just kind of move it down or not. The APQ just gives you a little bit more insight as to where you might be in the queue to help make that decision. So that's the APQ column. And note, the APQ column only works on order types which are actually in the market. So if I submit things like a stop loss order, and I'm doing that by middle mouse clicking here, I've got a stop limit, I'll go ahead and submit it. And I've got a stop limit order resting here, and you'll see there's no number, and that's actually expected since with stop limit order, there's no order actually in the market until the stop price triggers. Then this kind of, think of it as turning into a limit order, and now if you've got a limit order sitting here at this price to fill, we can do APQ on that, but since it's not actually activated at the stop price yet, there's really no order to sit in the market. So there's nothing to count. So that's the APQ column. The notes column is just an ability to throw in some notes at various price points. You do that by just double-clicking on the column, and let's say you want to just add some notes for the day. You know, this is, you know, the high, low, whatever, you know, pivot points. you want to throw in value area highs, value area lows, all that kind of stuff. You can just kind of throw little things in here, ranges that gaps and things like that. You just kind of throw notes in there. Just a interesting way to collect some notes. The P&L column activates when you're actually in a trade. And so what I'll do here is I've got no ATM strategy here. I'm on a Sim 101 account. I'm on ES day, and I'm just going to hit buy market here. And when I do that, we'll go ahead and grab this kind of header here, scrunch this up so I can get some more space here. And we've got a P&L column here that activates and shows me just the prospective profit and loss at each price point. So it's just a projection as to where, at what value you would be profitable, at what price, and at what price on the negative side you would be at a loss. So I typically keep this on my domes. Just lets me to, let's say, if I see my stop is at 100 down or something like that, but I see on my charts that at 23.79.50, I've got some support there, and I just don't think it's going to make it. Well, I can just look at that and be like, okay, I'm going to get a 62.50 loss there. I'll move my stop up. Just an easy way to understand what my losses and my profits might be. And that also changes depending on what position you're in. So I'm long one here. If I go buy market again, then it's going to double the P&L. So it's dependent on your quantity, which is good to know. And then finally, we've got the volume column here. And the volume column's blank since I've opened this when the market's in. It's just started its overnight session, I believe, or getting ready to start. So what I want to do is go into the columns by right-clicking columns. And I do want to run through these properties here, but let's go down to the volume column here that I have applied on the chart. And one of the properties here, we've got various properties. We have a buy-sell mode and a standard mode. You can specify these colors here. But one of the properties is trading hours, which is use instrument settings. So right now it's using, by default, we set all our futures to CME, US Index Futures, ETH templates. And you can confirm that by just going into the Control Center, Tools, Instruments, ES, double-click, and here's trading hours, CME, US Index Futures, ETH, and then if I'm interested to know what the ETH templates are, Tools, Trading Hours, CME, US Index Futures, ETH. You can see here that Thursday's session starts at 5 Central is when we've got the ETH session starting. So what I'm going to do is if I want to see some data there, I'm going to right-click, go into Columns, and I'm going to select a different session template. So I'm just going to pick one that just as a default 24/7 template here, just 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. kind of thing here, and then click OK. And then I've got a loading that was up here, and now it's gone. And so as I now hover over each one of these volume bars, I can see each volume at each price point. So you've probably seen this on any other dome nowadays. Typically will have volume associated with it. And we've also got the buy-sell version as well. So if I right-click, go into Columns, go into the Properties, I can go Standard or Buy-Sell. Buy-Sell will show a green and a red bar depending on if that volume occurred on the bid or the ask, and just gives you a breakdown of volume based on that. So you can definitely do it that way as well. And show volume text as well, you can turn that on. That just shows the volume text, but if you don't want it on all the time, then you can turn it off, of course. And click Apply. Okay. So trading hour template can be selected. Profit loss column doesn't have much to it. It's just got the colors that you can customize, notes, you can change different properties on the notes, and then APQ column, there's really not much to it except for the default background colors and things like that. And we have this visible concept, so you can turn on and off columns as you just kind of don't want to see it. Okay, so those are columns and working with columns within the DOM. All right, so next thing I want to get into is indicators and attaching orders to indicators. I'm actually going to speed along that section and just show you that you can apply indicators to the DOM. Right-click, Indicators. We've got any indicator which is price, which will plot on the price panel, which is indicators which, for example, a volume indicator does not plot on a price panel, since it can be any number from 1 to X thousands. Anything that plots on price panel, something like the SMA, which will have a value which is going to be on the same scale as the data series or the instrument. And I can do that here, and I'll click OK. We got trading hours here of use instrument settings. That should be fine, but we are in aftermarket trading. I just want to make sure we get an output, so I'm going to do default 24/7 again. And so now each indicator is just plotted on the DOM. I can hover over, see the SMA, and what I'll do is let's submit a buy limit order here. I've got my APQ value to show you. And what I want to do is attach that order to that indicator. So if that indicator goes up or down, I want that order to follow along with that indicator. I showed you in the last webinar how to do that on the chart. To do that on the DOM, I click the order. Now I've got the little hand icon. If I click again, that's just a manual move. So click and click to move the order. Now if I click and now I hold down Control on my keyboard, you'll see I get an attach right there. Go over and click Attach. It's going to say Attach. Do I want to attach it to the SMA? Yes. Any offset do I want applied? I'll do no. And modify toward last price only. That's if you only want it to tighten only. You can set that. I'll click OK. And now it'll just move it right on up to that SMA. Now the two are attached. And if I want to detach it, I just pull it away, click and click. It says this order is currently being managed by an indicator. Do you wish to disable that management and continue? I'll click yes, moves down. So that's attaching an order to an indicator. And where this can get interesting is whenever we start combining it with our ATM functionality, which I wanted to make sure to get into. The ATM functionality is set up through here through the ATM strategy selector. If you want to set up a new ATM strategy, and for those of you that maybe are new to ATM strategies or new to NinjaTrader, this is our advanced trade management stuff. This is where we will set up a profit target and a stop loss to be automatically submitted as you have an order fill to go long or go short. And I've got a couple set up here already, but if I go ahead and hit custom, I can set up a new one. And I go ahead and throw in my quantity size here, my time in force, my parameter type, which is, we've got two new modes in NinjaTrader 8. We've got, we had ticks, price, and percent in NinjaTrader 7. So ticks being, I just want my stop to be 20 ticks below my entry price. And I would say, here's my stop loss. I would put in 20 there. And I want my profit target to be 20 as well. Let's do it a little tighter so we can see it on our screen. We'll do 6 and 6. So what I'm essentially saying here is that I want my stop loss 6 ticks below my entry and my profit target 6 ticks above my entry. And if I click OK, just with those settings there, click OK, do by market, I'm going to get 6 ticks below on the stop loss, 6 ticks ahead on the profit target. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And what we've introduced is you can have currency and pips now. So pips is for the Forex guys. Think of a pip as 10 ticks, which is exactly kind of how we define it, since there's 10 sub-pips within a pip, or pipettes, however you want to call it. And then with currency mode, this is kind of saying, and it works kind of well with our P&L column here, this is saying whatever I'm trading, doesn't matter what, I want my stop loss to be, say, 100. 100, and I want my profit target to be $100 as well. So I'm saying I want my stop to be wherever a $100 stop loss is, place my stop there. Wherever a $100 profit is, place my stop loss, or put my profit target there. And that depends on your quantity as well. So if I click OK here, and then click Buy Market, what it does is I've got my P&L column here, and it's submitted my profit target here at however many ticks $100 will be, which in this case is 8. So we've got 8 ticks here, and we just kind of calculate it out and set it up accordingly. And again, that's quantity dependent. So if I up my quantity here, go to 2 on the quantity, hit Buy Market, now the range is just 4 ticks, since now that's $100 P&L on 2 contracts. So currency mode, something new we've added in our ATMs, definitely interesting to use. Okay. We also have no limit on our profit targets and stop losses now. We used to have a limit of 3. You can go ahead and set up as many as you like. The only warning I would have for you is to make sure you do a test, since brokerages and brokerage technologies sometimes will have order limits on the number of order actions you can do in, let's say, a second. And if they're throttling you, then you might not get away with doing your complex 10 target, 10 stop loss, 10 profit target, scale in, scale out strategy. Some will, some won't. So just make sure you check with your brokerage to make sure what your order, if any order limit is in place, just to make sure you stay below that. Since within ATM strategy, if you want to set up, you want to go long 10 ES and then place a profit target at every single tick above that and a stop loss on every single tick below that, you can definitely set that up. But when you hit Buy Market, you're going to do one order for, let's say, 10, and then you're going to, once that fills, you're going to do 10 profit target orders and 10 stop loss orders all within a second, which sometimes is not allowed. So just check with your brokerage on that. All right. Definitely got a lot more on ATMs we can cover. What I did want to show you, though, is let's right-click indicators. And the disadvantage of doing these webinars during the market close, which is definitely the best time to do it for those for people that are trading the market. But what I'll do is try to add, let's say, pick another indicator like a parabolic SAR here. Let's see what we get with that. Okay, so I'm not getting much indicator action, so I wish we had a little more market action. But I'll go ahead and do an ATM strategy here. I'll kind of do the same one. So I'll just hit Buy Market here. And I've got my stop here. And I can move that manually, of course, for anybody that's used ATM strategies. But here's where the cool combination comes in. So typically what you would do is set up an ATM strategy that would submit your profit targets and your stop losses at some safe distance out, whatever that is. Let's say your risk reward is, 10 tick stop loss on the ES. Set up your ATM for that 10 tick stop loss. Your order gets filled, your stop loss gets in the market 10 ticks below, and let's say you've got want to follow an indicator along, like a parabolic SAR or a range indicator or something like this, that you have an indicator that kind of you typically will use and want to follow that indicator with your stop loss. So you'll do the same thing. And ATMs and the indicator following actions can be set up. Since we've always had with NinjaTrader 7, we've had the ability on an ATM to set up an auto trail, which just kind of simply auto trails a target up based on as the market's going up, you want it to follow 10 ticks behind, you can set up an auto trail, no problem. What's new in NinjaTrader 8 is the ability to attach it to an indicator. So I'll just select the order to where I've got the hand icon, hold down that control button. Again, on my keyboard, that's the key, control on your keyboard, and you'll see that I get the attached text. And now as I move over, it says parabolic SAR here. Yep, that's what I want. Click attach. I can now attach that stop loss, click OK, and now these indicator, now I've got a stop that's going to trail this parabolic SAR up as the market moves. So definitely a powerful combination, is using the two in combination. So ATMs, we did have a few other things that we did want to get into. We are getting close on the hour. I'll go ahead and fit in the last one, which is with NinjaTrader 7, with an ATM strategy with NinjaTrader 7, you needed to set up a ATM strategy and have it selected before you get into the trade for a stop loss and profit target to be active. With NinjaTrader 8, we now have the ability for that scenario where, let's say, you just see an opportunity, you just really didn't have a chance to select or think to select the ATM strategy before you hit that buy market button. You click that buy market button, you've got your, you're now in the market, but oh man, where's my stop losses and profit targets? They're not here. Oh, I had none on my ATM. Well, now in NinjaTrader 7, you'd be looking to just kind of manually set them up and get them in the market as quick as you can. With NinjaTrader 8, you can go to the Control Center, go to the Positions tab, see your long ES position, right-click on it, hit Apply ATM Strategy, and go ahead and select one of the saved ATM strategies. So if I just go ahead and hit that saved ATM strategy, it goes ahead and submits that stop loss and profit target. So just a nice kind of safety. That's been an enhancement request we've had for quite some time with NinjaTrader 7, so I'm happy to be able to have that integrated into NinjaTrader 8. Alrighty, so that really gets through the most of what I wanted to get through. Today's webinar is just kind of going through at a high level some of the more hidden and things that you might not have known you can do with NinjaTrader. I'm sure that there's been questions as we've been running through that. We're kind of running up to our hour. There's more I could cover and more I had planned on. Maybe we'll need to do another session, webinar session, but I think that should cover it for today's webinar. Terry, if you're there, I could go ahead and start taking some questions if there are some questions in the room. Terry, are you there? Maybe? Okay, just checking to see if I can hear Terry here. Looks like I got a message from him for 1 sec, so we'll go ahead and wait for him to get back here. So with the NinjaTrader 8 product, the launch has been going pretty well. We've got 5 releases in. We're working on code freeze and doing some internal testing on our next NinjaTrader 8 release, which is looking pretty good. We've got 8.0.5 coming along.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Terry, you're a little low, but I can definitely hear you.
Sorry about that. Something is going on with my mic.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's see. Can chart templates be sorted by the creation/editing date and not just alphabetically?
Not right now. They're just a basic file dialog is what we've got set up there. Definitely an interesting idea is to have a kind of more complex file dialog, something you might see in the File Explorer, but not at this time.
Okay. What might also be interested in is if you could maybe categorize it. I don't know.
Like categorize templates? Okay.
Yeah, you could do like, gold template, or I don't know, just different kind of categories, and you can like sort by the categories. Just an idea.
Yeah, interesting idea. Something I haven't really come across yet, but yeah, interesting idea.
Okay. Is there a way to find which template was applied to a chart? I have many templates, and sometimes I don't know which ones are active.
Yeah, okay. So we actually got this question/enhancement request in NinjaTrader 7 quite often. We actually did take a look at that in NinjaTrader 8 to try to, let's say, marry a template to a chart so you know kind of what was last applied. The problem is when you apply a template, that just sets the properties and defaults to when the chart is opened. And then as you start kind of working with the chart, modifying any property as a template, it no longer is the template. So it's misleading to have the name of the template on it when the chart now is kind of substantially different from when you kind of loaded the template. So it's an interesting thing. I'd like to do something there. We just don't have a really good, solid approach to solve that problem at this time.
Okay. Is there a way to get back to the original factory default after saving a template as default?
Yes. Depends on where and what template you're talking about. If it's just things like I go right-click and go into columns, for example, I've got a preset. Now with presets, I just click Restore. That brings me back to default. With something like a chart template or a drawing tool template, which let me go ahead and open a chart. ESO 317, go ahead and open it. Now I recall, hopefully I still have it, I saved a Fibonacci template. I did. So now I want to go back to defaults. I double click on that drawing tools, go to template, go to load, and I've got a default template and a load template and a test one template here. The existence of a default template will always be loaded, so what I'll do is right click on it and remove it. So are you sure you want to remove? And then I'll also remove this test one just to clean it up. So now I've actually, let's say, removed all templates. I click OK, and so now since I no longer have a default template there, it's now just going to have the defaults. So.
Okay. Let's see. How can you import historical data entry from Excel into NinjaTrader?
Okay, so the question specific about Excel.
Yes.
So there's Excel file format, and then there's kind of CSV file format. We don't do anything with Excel directly since I don't remember the last time. I'm not sure who you're getting the Excel data from, but that's kind of rare. I don't see that very often.
It's probably
typically
CSV.
It's probably going to be in a CSV format,
yeah.
And in which case that's going to be tools, and then you're going to come into import historical data here. And we've got an import section here where we've got the ability to click this import button, and you'll be asked to, let's say, select a file to import. And if I click F1 on this dialog window here, I should be able to get into the help guide documentation here, where I can get into information as to what format that CSV format needs to be in. So here's our importing section, and here's our importing file formats where we go through. Here's the daily bar format. It needs to be in year, 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 month, month, day, day. So this is how you would go through and do an import from any, let's say, third-party source. And we have that for our daily bars, our minute bars, and the tick data.
Okay. Let's see. Do limit orders reside at NinjaTrader or my computer, or are they automatically sent to the exchange?
Okay, so that question is going to depend on the connection technology and brokerage you work with. As far as limit orders, you can be pretty safe to say any connection technology and any exchange really supports those. I don't think I've ever seen one that doesn't support a limit order.
Okay.
However, with things like stop loss orders or stop market orders, you need to check and see which brokerages and connection technologies will locally simulate that, send it on the exchange, or it's either simulated on the client PC by NinjaTrader. And when it's simulated on the client PC by NinjaTrader, we make it very obvious. And we do that by kind of having a yellow background. So if I right-click here and I go to a simulated order, so that's a special feature in NinjaTrader, is let's say I wanted to turn on simulated order, and I want any order I now submit will be simulated. And so now as I click the order, and now I go to the control center, go to orders, and what I'll see here is that this order is now going to be simulated locally on my PC, and and that's only if I'm turning on simulated order. If I am going to have, if I want to know if just in general, without using the simulated order feature, where my orders reside, you're typically going to be able to see that. What I'll do is have you write into platform support. There's a page in our help guide / website that our support desk will send you that just kind of describes where that is. Can't think off the top of my head where that exactly is, but there's definitely a resource for you just to understand, based on your connection technology and your provider, whether your orders are simulated or not.
Okay. Regarding data importing for a footprint chart is there a particular format required?
So on the footprint charts, I suspect we don't really have a footprint chart feature. I suspect what this user is talking about is the ability to have bid and ask price stamped tick data. And yes, you can do that. This is this last kind of property here where it's got tick replay format second granularity. And you'll see here that it's got the last price, the bid price, and the ask price, and the volume. So in this case, you can import data to where if your data supports ask and bid stamped tick data, then you can definitely import that data in and use that to build a footprint chart, if you will.
Okay.
If you had a third-party indicator that built that kind of constructed footprint charts, then yes, you could do that.
Is there a
and
way?
We didn't even have a chance to get into that. That's also part of the tick replay functionality.
Okay.
Which tick replay, we save it for those that really kind of understand what they're getting into with that. And tick replay, you need to turn it on in your application. So you'll go to Tools, Options. You'll go down to Market Data, and you have this Show Tick Replay option here. And when you turn that on, now when you're kind of opening in a chart or a strategy or whatever, you've got the ability to checkbox this tick replay button here. And the tick replay functionality allows you to play back ticks to build a bar. So if you've got a 1-minute bar, instead of using 1-minute data to build that 1-minute bar, it's going to use tick data to build that 1-minute bar as if you had seen the data live. But when you're doing so with tick replay, it's very processor intensive, very heavy to do, since you're really playing back an entire day's, however many days back of data you've got here, you're playing back that data through the chart and building those bars as if it was live. So we kind of do that as fast as we can, but anytime you're using tick replay, you want to keep the days to load minimum as possible to get your any kind of footprint / indicators that rely on bid-ask stamped tick data. You're going to want to kind of reduce those values just to keep performance as high as possible. And it's really kind of your loading performance that really suffers the most. So, let's say I open NinjaTrader for the first time for the day, and we need to load all that tick data, replay all the ticks to build the bars. That can take some time, so you want to make sure you're using it as, let's say, sparingly as possible.
Okay. Is there a way to speed up compiling? My PC takes a long time to compile a strategy. It could be more than 5 minutes.
5 minutes seems odd to me. I would actually ask you to check in with our support desk on that one, since we use a .NET compiler. There's nothing special we're doing there. We're just passing it off to Microsoft's .NET framework and say, compile this code. It's the same thing that happens when we compile the entire NinjaTrader application itself. The entire NinjaTrader application itself, takes, I don't know, 10 seconds to compile, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you're taking, just 4 or 5 minutes to compile just a strategy, that something doesn't sound right there.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to contact our support team. I would only expect compile times to take, you know, in seconds, not minutes.
Okay. Regarding performance, is there any kind of test I can do to benchmark the performance of NT7 versus NT8? Also, how can I know for sure that NT8 is using multiple threads?
Okay, so getting into performance and just trying to understand what's kind of going on there. This is a complex topic. We could actually do a whole webinar just on this. But the high level would be to go into your task manager, go into the performance section. You've got the CPU here. The CPU, I think by default shows it this way, where it just is showing you your aggregate CPU activity. What you're going to want to do is right-click on that guy and go to change graph to logical processors. I'm on a computer here that's got 8 cores. So here I can actually see what each individual core is doing. So we do this a lot in our NinjaTrader 8 development as we kind of go through and optimize things. And so what you're going to be looking for is to making sure that all your CPU cores are getting, let's say, are being utilized using this graph. And that's to answer the second half of your question, which is how do I know all my that NinjaTrader is multi-threaded and using multiple cores. With NinjaTrader 7, when you would look at this graph, you would just kind of see one core here, just kind of maxed out.
Okay.
With NinjaTrader 8, you'll see it distributed. With as far as benchmarking performance between NinjaTrader 7 and 8, only way to do that is just getting your stopwatches out and doing specific apples-to-apples tests. I don't really have any specific guidance there. If this question is coming from somebody who's a developer that's wanting to understand any performance gains that he might have in NinjaTrader 8 or understand any new code he's written, why it's either performing worse off than NinjaTrader 7, then you definitely could do some apples-to-apples tests there, but that's kind of what our support team's around to help out with as well. They've got some knowledge on that topic as well to just kind of understand what might be different between NinjaTrader 7 and 8 to give a better answer to that in your specific case.
Okay. And they said understood and thank you.
Okay, great.
See. I think I've hit most of the pertinent questions that are pertaining. Is there any kind of volume profile in NT8 or any way to see an indicator for value area high or low?
Not right now. That's one of our toply requested indicators. We kind of depend on our third-party vendors to really fill those needs of, let's say, indicators and things like and advanced bar types and chart types. We really like to have our ecosystem kind of grow and flourish and be able to satisfy the unique needs. I'm already aware, for example, in Futures.io, I think there's a few indicators in the forum section on NinjaTrader with footprint style charts and that kind of thing, value area high and low type charts. So you definitely can find them around. And even can find them from, let's say, paid vendors. I could not say or comment on if we would do them in the future at this time. I just know that that's something that we do hear a lot of requests for.
Okay. Is there a way to turn off the tabs beneath the charts?
Yes. So if you're looking to save every bit of real estate that you can, and you're just a single chart guy or a single tab guy, right-click on in the chart area, and there's a Show Tabs option here. Turn that off.
Bingo. Okay, I think that's all the questions for today. As always, it's a great webinar and lots of interesting tips and tricks and ways to maximize your usage and performance in NT8.
Awesome. Well, again, I really appreciate you guys letting me come down and show you some of my tips and tricks. If you guys have any questions or need any help getting up with the product, we've got a great platform support team. We're pretty well known for our responsive support team. You can just go to NinjaTrader.com. Their platform support at NinjaTrader.com, and our email. We're very quick to get back on replies. Typically, usually within the you'll see a reply within the minutes time frame typically. So definitely feel free to reach out for any questions you have. If you have any feedback on this webinar or anything that we didn't get questions answered in this webinar, feel free to send those to platformsupport@ninjatrader.com and put attention Brett, B-R-E-T-T, in the subject line. That's myself, and I'll be happy to address any questions you might have. And again, appreciate you having us in the webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks, guys.